My name's Carrie. Today I'm going to be telling you about my birth month and birth year, which is October of 1999. If you're interested in an unsolved crime, murder crime, or a little bit of politics, some random facts, and music and movies, please stay tuned. So the first thing that I want to tell you guys about that I found was super interesting that involves politics is in October of 1999, Donald Trump actually announced that he was considering running for the presidential election, and he also entered the Reform Party because way back when he used to be a Democrat, but obviously today he is a Republican, and he's also our current president, which is super ironic and really cool. Another thing involving politics is guns. So there's a couple different topics I have involving guns. One of them is that the UPS company announced in October of 1999 that they were not going to be delivering guns on their ground service, which is cool because I didn't even know that was a thing back then. And they canceled this because a lot of the guns were getting stolen, which makes sense. So they canceled that. Interesting. But then another thing that doesn't really correlate is that the FBI found a huge drop in gun violence because of the large amount of police presence, and there's a whole bunch of new laws for guns, and then homicides dropped 7% because of that. So it's just weird that there was stolen guns happening but a drop in gun violence. So cool, because especially today we have so many mass shootings and homicides like left and right. You hear about one almost every day. It's really sad. So a lot has changed since then, obviously. And then the last thing that I want to address for that's kind of political is the United Nations declared in October of 1999 that the population hit 6 billion. So that's interesting. That was on October 12th that they declared that. And today's population is in the 7 billion. So I'm not sure of the exact number, but for all these years, it really hasn't, to me, it doesn't seem like it has even gone up that much. So that was interesting. The second topic that I want to address is entertainment. So some movies and music that were released in 1999. So I'm going to talk about movies first. I found two that were probably the most well-known. The first one is Fight Club. So I have never seen Fight Club myself, but I know a lot of people that have and that have talked about it. And I would tell you about Fight Club, but the first rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. So I'm just going to move on to the next movie. The second movie that I found was what is it called? The House on Haunted Hill. Sorry, I couldn't recall it for a second there. That was released in October of 1999, and I've never seen it myself, but I'm really interested in scary movies, so I think I'm going to check that one out after reading about it. There is also a Netflix series called The Haunting on Hill House that was released in 2018. I have seen that. It's 10 episodes long. That is really good. I suggest it for anybody that's interested in scary movies. So that's cool how they managed to remake that really recently after it was the original movie was released so long ago. The next thing, two songs I found that you guys would know of are the first one, Mariah Carey's Heartbreaker. That one was #1 in the US for only 2 weeks, so it did okay, her song. But the next one that I found, I have never listened to any of their music, but I have asked people about them and they did know who I was talking about, so hopefully some of you know who I'm talking about. It's a rock band called Santana, and the song they released is called Smooth. And their song was actually #1 in the US for 12 weeks, so that was from October to January. That's a long time, so that must be a pretty good song. Maybe I'll have to check that out. So for any of you that like rock music, that might be interesting to you. So next, I'm going to move on to the unsolved murder crime that I found out about. This was super interesting to me. I love crime shows and all that stuff, so for anybody who likes that, this will be really interesting to you. What I found was this girl named Anna Marie was murdered in 1979, but her rapist and killer was executed in October of 1999 for a completely different murder. So his nickname is Animal, so that's what I'm going to refer to him as, because he is an animal, hearing about all the crimes that he's committed. He was a notorious serial rapist, murderer, basically. And so he raped and killed Anna Maria in 1979, but he ended up on death row 20 years later. Is that right? Yes, in 1999 for a 3-person murder crime. So he ended up on death row because he shot 2 people to death, which were 2 boys, I believe, and then the third was a female. And he sexually assaulted her, and then he strangled her with her own underwear. Super gross, I know, but there's scary people out in the world, and he is one of them for sure, but thankfully he's gone. But we didn't know that Animal had murdered Anna Marie in 1979 until this year, 2019. I'm serious. This, because a long time ago, they did not have the technology we do now, so they could not figure out like these cases with DNA and all that stuff back then. Which the reason they had solved this Anna Maria's murder was that they found DNA under a fingernail. So they traced it to him, Animal, which is insane. Like 4 decades, this case was cold. No one could figure out what happened to this poor girl, and now we know. So hopefully, like, family has some closure and everything. But the reason that it took so long for them to even link him to this crime, even though he was a notorious serial rapist, he had a hotspot area that he stayed in and killed people, obviously, for so long. But Anna Marie, was murdered 2,000 miles out of that zone. And they had basically every other rapist or convicted felon available to test their DNA, and they never thought it would be him, but it was. And it's just crazy that for 40 years this went unsolved. So that was really interesting to me. Anyways, so a couple random facts for you was that the gas price in 1999 was like $1 to $1.60, so that was really, really low compared to today's gas, which can almost be $3. And then another random thing I found, which is kind of interesting, was the college inflation rate was about 3%, 3.4%, and then the inflation for all regular items was 2.19. So the college inflation rate was higher than every other object available at the time, which is crazy. So college tuition was much increased in October of 1999. I mean, it obviously is way more expensive than it was then, but I thought that was interesting. And then another thing I found was that the HRC started delivering public service announcements for LGBTQ to promote like anti-violence against them and like just show awareness to what is happening to anybody in the LGBTQ community, which I think is super interesting because obviously today same-sex marriage is legal basically almost everywhere, and a lot of those same-sex couples are super accepted. I know I support them and everything, so that's interesting how times have changed. But yeah, the now and then difference is, it's there for sure. A lot of things have changed since I was born in October 1999, so it was really interesting for me to look up all this stuff and find out some pretty cool things. But yeah, Donald Trump, considered being president then, he's president now. There's some songs that were released back then in movies that people still watch and listen to today. Unfortunately, we still have serial rapists in the world, like Animal. And yeah, thank you for watching.